So this is how you get out of taxes.
You understand this definition, you become completely untouchable, untaxable, and essentially vapor in the law. And there's no way to pin you down. It's physically impossible.
How many people do you know that they've done this and they're like, yep, Brandon, I did it, and now your method worked?
Oh, it works every single time, because this is what the law says. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. And that's why in criminal cases, you'll always see United States versus John Doe. United States is a person. If this thing is a person and this thing is a corporation, where is this particular corporation located? The United States is located in the District of Columbia. It's saying that the United States is basically a state inside of the District of Columbia. Now, I've looked and tried to find where that state called United States is located inside of the District of Columbia, how large it is, and what its coordinates are. I've never seen that information anywhere, and I don't think it even exists. What's very fascinating about the term United States citizen, it doesn't say anything about living there. It says law, birth, and naturalization. That's why there is no definition as to where the United States is located, because that's not actually how someone becomes a United States citizen. Where you live has literally nothing to do with it. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a nation upon an individual or organization after birth by any means whatsoever. And this is how you can be located in an undefined location called United States. You can only move there by saying you live there. You can't physically move there because there's no definition as to where it physically is. And that's why this is so powerful.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mission Daily. I'm the host, Stephanie Postles, and today we are going to be discussing a lot of topics that are really going to shake the foundations of what many of us believe to be true. For example, you are unknowingly a part of many contracts that control your life. We're also going to discuss personal sovereignty, why and how the government opened a corporation for you at your birth, how car dealerships, mortgage lenders, and banks actually fund your loans, and my personal favorite, how you can have infinite money. So with that, I brought on Brandon Joe Williams to discuss all of this and more. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello.
Hi, howdy. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Howdy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I heard that my team member got you with a nice personal message that started off with, "Hey, asshole." Is that what it was?
Probably. That's
Probably.
typically when I get those kind of messages, I know that I actually like those kind of messages because I know that they actually consume my content. It's like a good filter. It's like, oh, look, someone who actually enjoyed my content. I can tell right away, you know? So, yeah, it's always it's a beautiful filter because typically most emails begin with, Jim, pickle up your ass or fuck you or God knows what. And then it kind of ends. Then there's some of that usually in the middle and then there's some of it at the end. And that's typically my average email. So we have a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's pretty great. So from what I have seen, what I know about you, it seems like you specialize in breaking down complex legal systems. You are also the founder of onestupidfuck.com. You're the founder of Contract Killer Course. You're a podcast host, and author. You are a king of sarcasm, and you are an actual king of a nation called the Amnesty Coalition. Is there anything that I just missed there for your bio of you?
That's plenty.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty, your website, I mean, onestupidfuck.com. Come on. That's pretty amazing. Like, I don't even know how you thought of that domain, but I'm like, that's good. Even just saying it on the show is pretty great.
I know, it's a lot of fun. I still laugh every time I hear it. And yeah, so it's a lot of fun.
So in watching your videos, you seem really passionate about human betterment. And I would love to hear where that comes from, like where this desire for everything that you're doing, what's at the core of it? Like, where does this quest for knowledge come from? Where is this, everything that you're doing, like, where's it come from?
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff started when I was being attacked by a government agency called the Employment Development Department.
Yep. And
they sort of trespassed on one of my clients' properties for a landscaping company that I have. That's basically what started it all. They sent me a very large bill, and accountants and lawyers thought I should just make a payment plan. I'm like, what do you even do? Like, what? Like you say you're a lawyer, you say you're an accountant. What do you actually do? I could go ask a small child on a kindergarten playground and they'd say, make a payment plan. It's like, that doesn't require years and years of schooling to figure that one out. So I was like, that's not going to happen. So I went down this whole rabbit hole of like, how does this work, and what do I have to do, and what can I do to defend myself or protect the bank accounts, and like kind of that whole thing. And by the time I had that all figured out, which involved creating private irrevocable trusts that aren't located in the United States, and then moving all the assets and all the bank accounts and everything to that trust. And once I did that, and so I basically just left the company behind as like a shell. There was nothing there. So I allowed the EDD to continue to pretend as though it was going to get something on the other end by fighting and raging against that corporation. But I think one day they finally realized there's nothing there, and then they just went away. So, but during that whole process, I realized so many things, and so many doors had been opened, and so many questions had been posed that were so fascinating to me that I said, oh, this is very, very, very interesting. And I wanted to continue down all of those paths. And that all happened, 2021, maybe around, I started studying everything in September. And then by about March is when I started putting together the trusts and doing all the stuff. And then I also launched onestupidfuck.com at that time. And I did a whole bunch of stuff all at once. I was like just studying quietly for several months. And then by the time March hit of 2022, I was just like, went like 15 trillion miles an hour. It was like, as soon as the tires hit the pavement, I had, documents and affidavits and filings and my passport and stuff going to the IRS and the private irrevocable trust and all this stuff all happened in like 45 days. And I launched the website too. So it was like this flurry of action. And then ever since then, it's pretty much just been research for a while, and then like a flurry of action, and then research for a while, and then a flurry of action, and then research for a while, and then a flurry of action. And then eventually I opened up my own law firm, and then now we take on litigation clients. So now we take clients that want to litigate as a pro se litigant, and we are what's called attorneys in fact, which means that we can't present on their behalf in a court of law, but we're like full blown counsel. We're like full blown. We're there for them and anything they need, and we rah them, and we help them with documents, and we do it all. We just can't physically speak on their behalf in like live teleconferences or in an actual court.
I want to dive into getting into some of the meatier things, and I want to start with you explaining the difference between a U.S. citizen, which many people listening are like, hi, that's me, and a state national. That's kind of where I wanted to start with this conversation.
Sure. Can I do a screen share and show it rather than just talk about it?
Go for it. Yep.
We will start at the beginning. So the first and foremost thing that anyone has to learn when they start to look into all this legal stuff and citizenship and taxation and all this craziness that goes on and on and on, and driver's licenses and bank accounts and Federal Reserve notes and checks and all this stuff is the definition of the word person. The definition of the word person is pretty shocking for people who have never seen it before. There's many different definitions all over the place, but this one is from the tax code. So the way that the United States Code is broken down is it goes by titles. So you can see here Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they all have different subjects they're talking about. Like Title 11 is bankruptcy. Title 12 is banks and banking. Title 8 is really important for a lot of the stuff that we talk about, aliens and nationality. And then Title 26 is the one we're going to look at right now, which is called the Internal Revenue Code, or the tax code would be the simpler way of saying it, right? It has my favorite definition of the word person, but you're going to see a similar definition to this everywhere. Some of them are really complicated. Some of them are even way more simple and open and vague. I like this one the most. It's sort of like in the middle where it gives a lot of examples and you can get a really good idea, but it doesn't go on and on and on and on forever into all these crazy things like a lot of the definitions of the word person does, okay? The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So literally, if you have a corporation and it's called Starbucks Incorporated, in law that Starbucks Incorporated is a person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in criminal cases, you'll always see State of California versus John Doe or United States versus John Doe. That's because State of California is a person and United States is a person. Very important. It's one of the most important things you'll ever learn. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Usually where I start with all of this is you ask yourself, okay, so United States is a person. How does that work? Well, the first thing you ask yourself is, okay, if United States is a person, it must be an individual, a trust, an estate, a partnership, association, company, or a corporation. Which one is it, Brandon? That's a very good question. The answer to your question is in Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, subsection 15, definition A. United States means a federal corporation. Okay, so now we know. We go back to the definition of the word person and we see here, which one is it? It's this one here, corporation. Okay, That's what it is. Now, we want to ask ourselves, okay, so if this thing is a person and this thing is a corporation, where is this particular corporation located? You'll find the answer to that question in the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9, which is the same thing as saying title in the United States Code, but they go by article in the Uniform Commercial Code. Article 9, Section 307, subsection H, tells us the location of the person called United States. Location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now, the first thing you ask yourself is, okay, it's located in the District of Columbia. Does that mean it is the District of Columbia? No. It means that it's an unknown shape and size, almost sort of like when you think of the whole like North America, and then you think of like California as just like this particular shape inside of this larger body. That's what this is saying. It's saying that the United States is basically a state inside of the District of Columbia. Now, I've looked and tried to find where that state called United States is located inside of the District of Columbia, how large it is, and what its coordinates are. I've never seen that information anywhere, and I don't think it even exists. So the problem is that we don't actually know the location of this person called United States, because we know kind of where it's at. We know it's in the District of Columbia, but if you're in the District of Columbia, you can ask yourself, am I in the United States? I don't think there's any way to answer that question. I couldn't answer that question for you. It's basically, and I'll show you more and more as we go on with this, how that works and how you wind up in the United States, because there's actually a very specific way that you wind up in the United States. So now we're going to look at 42 USC 9102. And we're going to look at the definition of the term United States citizen, which is what you asked me before, right? We had to go that far before we can get into that, right? Now, what's very fascinating about the term United States citizen, which, by the way, is 42 USC 9102 subsection 18, United States citizen means, and then it goes into all the stuff. Now, it's interesting. You ask yourself, I have a lot of really intelligent people ask me, well, Brandon, if a trust or an estate or a partnership or an association or a company or a corporation is by definition a person, then couldn't an estate, a trust, a partnership, an association, a company, or a corporation be a United States citizen? And you'll see here in subsection C, the answer to that question is yes. Any corporation, partnership, association, or other entity organized or existing under the laws of the United States. But most people don't fit that category. They're individuals. So that one is covered in subsection A. Any individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. So if you notice, it doesn't say anything about living there. It says law, birth, and naturalization. That's why there is no definition as to where the United States is located with coordinates or meets and bounds, because that's not actually how someone becomes a United States citizen. Where you live has literally nothing to do with it. It's by law, birth, or naturalization. By law means essentially by contract. By birth is very complicated, and actually I don't really even think that really works the way people think it does. And actually I'm going to be doing some litigation on that here very soon with the state of Indiana and the Department of State, because I don't actually think that's how it works at all. And I think that's actually a huge scam part of this whole thing. I personally believe the main part of this that is actually the functional aspect as to how someone becomes a United States citizen is actually through the process of naturalization. Now, if you thought what I've shown you so far in this is extreme and really you're having a hard time even believing any of this is true, when I show you the definition of naturalization, it's going to blow you clean out of your chair, probably out the back window of wherever you're sitting in your home. Because when I first learned about the definition of naturalization, I couldn't even hardly think for probably about 60 days. I felt like I had gotten hit by a freaking train. So the definition of the term naturalization comes from Title 8 of the United States Code, which is Aliens and Nationality, Section 1101, subsection A23. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever.
Okay, seems a little aggressive, and I don't really fully understand it.
Yeah, so we're going to break it down because it's probably the most important thing literally ever in anything, in my opinion. All of my research up to now, what you're looking at right here is probably the most important thing I've ever found. And when you understand this definition, you become completely untouchable, untaxable, and you can literally locate yourself anywhere you want, and you can locate all of your trusts, estates, companies, partnerships, associations, or corporations anywhere you want, every second of the day, as many times as you want. You can move yourself to France instantly. You can move yourself to Antarctica instantly. You can be in multiple locations instantly. When you understand this definition, you literally become essentially vapor in the law, and there's no way to pin you down. It's physically impossible. So if we clean up all the definitions here, we have the word conferring, which just means stating or giving or stating a condition or whatever. Nationality, meaning having to do with a nation. And then we have this word state, right? So most people think the word state means, one of the 50 things that are in the United States that, whatever, right? That's actually not really the definition of the word state at all. If you go to Black's Law, I have everything cold here. It's a lot easier for me to use my own website, but from Black's Law, we have all the definitions that we need, and I'm going to go down to, give me 1 second here. So if you look up state, it's not a very good definition. It just says like a body politic or society, essentially. So I looked up body politic, and then, here we go. In its largest sense, a state is a body politic or a society of men. And then I was like, okay, that doesn't really tell me much. So I went to body politic. Body politic says a state or a nation. I was like, okay, that doesn't really help me either. And then I looked for the definition of the word nation, and then bingo, bam, this is when things started to really open up in terms of how does this actually work. So the definition of nation or state or body politic or society, it's all the same term, is an independent body politic, a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. But every combination of men who govern themselves independently of all others will not be considered a nation. A body of pirates, for example, who govern themselves are not a nation. To constitute a nation, another ingredient is required. The body thus formed must respect other nations in general and each of their members in particular. Such a society has her affairs and her interests. She deliberates and takes resolutions in common, thus becoming a moral person who possesses an understanding and will peculiar to herself and is susceptible of obligations and rights. It's always the first question is, okay, Brandon, what the hell does that mean? So what that means is it's just like how the cells form a human body. It's a bunch of independent cells that come together and they have this form. And the human body, even though it's a collection of billions of cells or trillions or whatever it is, it operates as one coherent unit. That is the same definition of the term nation. And I actually believe that the term nation comes from the idea of cells building a human body. So what are the two things that the definition of nation says it needs to have in order to be a nation? It has to be, it has to respect other nations in general and each of their members in particular. It has its own affairs. It has its own interests. It deliberates and takes resolutions in common. It becomes a moral person. I think that's I also believe that's where the definition of the word person comes from. So person is a bunch of individual people that work together as one body, no different than cells. It's the same idea. And that's how the definition of the word person was redefined during the Reconstruction part of the Civil War to include things like corporations and trusts and estates and all these different things. And so really internal tranquility and external tranquility is really essentially what creates a nation. And if you'll notice, there's absolutely nothing in this definition at all as regards to location, territory, or coordinates. That has nothing to do with the definition of the word nation. A nation is just an idea. And that also allows you to understand what a corporation is, because everyone knows a corporation is just an idea. A corporation is a nation. It's a group of individuals that operate together, and as long as they operate with good internal and external tranquility, a corporation is, by definition, a nation.
Can these definitions, like how often can they just be changed? I'm just imagining like you build up all these courses based on these definitions, and then can the laws just change and be like, well, now a nation means this. We added one more word where everything that you built up your thesis on of why you're maybe not, a citizen anymore falls apart because it's just changed.
No, you'll see there's a lot more to this interwoven into all this. This is very old stuff. This is not any.
Okay, so it doesn't
A lot
change.
of this information that I'm covering with you guys comes from the 1800s or even before that, actually.
Got it.
Now, getting back onto this, though, nationality and citizenship. So we've cleaned up this definition of the word state. So if I replace it with the word nation, we're going to reread this now. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a nation upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So now it's starting to make a little bit more sense, but we have the word person, right? And Brandon said earlier it's defined differently from different places. So what does Title 8 say the definition of the word person is? We click the word here, and we get the definition is the term person means an individual or an organization. It's very vague. Could be anything. Could be anything under the sun, moon, and stars. And that's why I like the tax code's definition more. It's a little bit more precise, and it gives you more of a reality of what the term person actually means, right? So now if we reread this again and we replace the word state with the word nation and we replace the word person with the definition, now this definition is going to start making some sense. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a nation upon an individual or organization after birth by any means whatsoever. And this is the only way, in my opinion, that you can be located, or any corporation or any trust or any estate or any organization can be located in an undefined location called United States. You can only move there by saying you live there. You can't physically move there because there's no definition as to where it physically is. And that's why this is so powerful. So for example, if you're pulled over on the side of the road and the officer says, where do you live? If you say, I live in Antarctica, you are actually live right there in front of the officer, naturalizing into Antarctica. You can't lie. It's a physical impossibility. Wherever you say you are, in law, you are there. And it gets more complicated because I was trying to figure out, well, what if you say you're in multiple locations all at once? I've never found anything that would specifically prevent someone from doing that. So you can actually naturalize into as many places as you want or as few. And you can also literally say that you're really not naturalized into anything. And whatever it is that you say is exactly what is true. There is no like, oh, you're physically located here. If you look at like state of California residency laws, there is absolutely nothing in state codes that delineate physical presence. Physical presence is literally legally not even a part of our law system. You can check it out for yourself if you don't believe me. Doesn't exist. So because they would need to have coordinates, they would need to have times, they would need to say if your physical body is located in between these coordinates. But then you got to think, how would that work for a corporation? Corporation is just an idea. So the thing is that these definitions like resident and residency and living in a state, they're all based off of corporate fiction ideas, such as how to locate a corporation. How do you locate a corporation? There's only one way you can locate a corporation, by the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So physical location and physical domicile and physical residency has absolutely nothing to do with the law or taxation or location at all whatsoever. Naturalization is the only way to locate anything anywhere, and there's nothing stopping you. You can actually renaturalize or denaturalize or naturalize into any place or anything. You can even make up ideas. If you say, I confer the nationality of heaven upon my trust after birth by any means whatsoever, legally, you've just naturalized that trust into a location called heaven.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I'm just imagining, like, let's just take California. When I was there, man, they were trying to claw their way into so much revenue from Mission and being like, you made this revenue in California, even, and then you hear about the laws that they're trying to do now. One day someone was proposing, like, you leave the state and you're going to have to owe them money for years to come, and the wealth tax or whatever it was. And so I'm just trying to play out how this would work if you're there or you're in any state, and maybe you do have forms that have to go somewhere. They have to probably be sent somewhere. Like a lot of these things, how would you even operate business right now? I mean, I think about even opening up a bank. I need an EIN. How do I get an EIN? You got to have somewhere normally for them to send things. And so in a way, I'm like, how do you just get out of putting your information anywhere and still operate life?
None of that is true. So I get EIN numbers from the Internal Revenue Service. The address that I put on there for the location of my trust is 123 Purple Monkey Lane. The city is Pickle-Taria, and the country is the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, and they issue me foreign EIN numbers.
Where does it come to? Is it just digitally, or do they send you paper somewhere?
Well, you have permanent address and you have mailing address. Permanent address is the actual residence location. And then the mailing address is just where they're sending mail. The mailing address does not establish residency. So you can say mailing address would be my P.O. Box, P.O. Box 1962, Glendale, California, 91209. But that's not a residence. That's just a mailing address. Permanent address, which is the resident address, is 123 Purple Monkey Lane, Pickle-Taria, in the nation of the Amnesty Coalition. They're not going to mail anything to the permanent address. They're going to mail everything to the mailing address. And that's why on every single document, they ask you for the address twice. One says mailing address and one says permanent address. Same thing with the DS-11 passport application. If we pull it up right now, it's going to have permanent address and it's going to have mailing address. So you can receive mail at the mailing address, but you're not a resident and you don't domicile at the mailing address. So if you go down to the DS-11, on the first page, we have here mailing address, line 1. And then on the second page, we have, permanent address. So permanent address, if you look, it says here, if you put a P.O. box in the mailing address, right? And then they say here, do not list a P.O. box, right? Now look at this. No one's ever seen this. Street/RFD number or URB. So if you look up what these things mean, RFD means rule-free delivery, which means like off-grid, God knows where, whatever. So all we put in permanent address, nowadays I would put 123 Purple Monkey Lane, and then city would be Pickle-Taria, and then over here somewhere I would say like foreign, and then it would say the nation of the Amnesty Coalition. But the way we were doing it before, and it's very functional and it works very well, is you just write rule-free delivery here, which means not in your system and on some dirt road that you'll never find, and it wouldn't do you any good to know anyways, basically. So that's what RFD means. So you would put RFD or rule-free delivery route 4274, or you just make up a route number, it doesn't matter. And then on mailing address is where you'd put your P.O. box on the first page.
Okay, got it. And so you would just do this for everything. What about things like, I'm thinking about benefits. When you are picking benefits, like within my company, they have to know what state you're in because that's how you get your benefits. It's like you are in Texas, so you're going to get a different offering. So you kind of have to tell them I'm in Texas because then I'm going to get the Aetna plan, whatever, instead of California that doesn't have that. So what would you do for that then? Because then you'd be defining your residency by telling them that.
Well, you wouldn't say I live in state of Texas. You got to keep in mind too, is that the government opened up a public corporation of your name in all capital letters. It's basically a trade name when you see your name in all capital letters. It refers to an actual entirely separate person from you. The Social Security number is basically an EIN number. If you look at the Social Security number, it's the exact same number of digits as an EIN number. The definition of an EIN or an ITIN number that you're going to get, which is I'm showing you on the screen right here, an EIN number is a number that is an identifying number for a business. So the Social Security number is an identification number for a business. That business is Brandon Joe Williams in all caps. That business is a corporation. That corporation is a person. So the way that I handle that situation is I wouldn't say I live in state of Texas. I would say I, Brandon Joe Williams, upper and lowercase, hereby confer the nationality of the state of Texas upon Brandon Joe Williams in all capital letters after birth by any means whatsoever. And now that I move that playing piece called Brandon Joe Williams in all caps, I instantaneously move that playing piece from wherever it's located currently to what's called state of Texas.
Has this ever not worked for you? Like, how many people do you know that they've done this and they're like, yep, Brandon, I did it. And now like your method worked? Like
thousands and thousands. It works every single time. Now they get confused and they don't understand things. And then we have to sue them. That's why I have so much litigation going on. There is no doesn't work. It's just, here's a definition. This is what you need to do. I'm not asking you. When I tell you that I am conferring the nationality of state of Texas upon Brandon Joe Williams after birth by any means whatsoever, I'm not asking you. It's not a request. It's an order. So if you don't follow my order, I'm going to sue you for breach of contract. I'm going to sue you for breach of fiduciary duties. I'm going to sue you for not performing because you didn't perform. There is no didn't work. They didn't perform, and now you need to force them to perform.
So that part then, how much does that work? And I'm asking these questions because I've been in litigations now for 3 years, and I view it as a process that can be never ending. I view it as a system that even if you have the right technicalities, it can depend on the judge. It can depend on how they're feeling. It can depend on so many other things that technicalities don't seem to always win. And then you're just in a constant legal situation, which is quite terrible for multiple years. So that's where I'm like, how about that piece when you're going after these technical, conditions and saying, hey, you're supposed to do this? Are you just caught up in the legal system for like an infinite amount of time while you're doing these things, or what's that look like?
Well, it's kind of nice. It depends on how you look at it, because I love being caught up in the legal system for several years because I'm not making payments on anything. Yeah. I'm not paying taxes until they prove somehow that I physically am a resident of state of Texas, and it's not me. It's this all caps name, and it's not that, and it's me. It's going to take them forever. They're never going to find anything because nothing exists that they could ever use to prove that. So the thing is that what's cool about litigation is that once you start the litigation and you claim these things, everything goes on hold. So let's say you do have creditors that are calling you. Let's say you do have people showing up at your door. Let's say when you litigate, all that goes away. If it goes away for 9 years, that's perfect, because then you also got to think too is that anyone else coming to your door or wanting to come to your door, or anyone else with those same concerns, you say, nope, I'm in federal litigation or I'm in state litigation, and if you have a concern, then we can add you as a party into the case. And they go, well, fucking A, and they walk away. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's the greatest thing in the world. All I think about all day long is just how can I get involved in more litigation? I have 14 cases I'm currently building.
Yeah, but you represent yourself, which is, I feel like, different. I mean, I think about my situation. I mean, legal fees are expensive, and I know I've heard you be like, you don't really need a lawyer. Mine's in family law, so that's a little bit quite different and complicated and just different stakes. But
it's a whole different conversation. But the worst thing you can ever do, ever, is retain an attorney at law. It is the absolute worst thing you could possibly do. So the definition of client, just to jump over to that real quick, we can come back to this in a moment. The definition of the word client from Corpus Juris Secundum, I'll show it to you here. And like I said, I culled all this down and put it all together on my website. So I do strongly recommend that everyone go and verify all this information. Don't just take my word for it. Okay. So when you hire a bar card attorney, which is a different type of, there's two different types of attorney. There's an attorney at law and an attorney in fact. When you hire a bar card, we call them bar cards. It's just our little pet name, right? They call us sovereign citizens. We call them bar cards. Okay. So a bar card is an attorney at law. Okay. When you hire a bar card, you become what's called a client. When you look at Corpus Juris Secundum and you look up the definition of the term client, it is one who applies to a lawyer. Clients are also called wards of the court. It's like, what the hell? That doesn't sound so good. So then you go and look up wards of court. And the definition of that is infants and persons of unsound mind. So what's happening when you take on an attorney at law, and this doesn't apply to an attorney in fact relationship, when you take on an attorney at law, what's happening is you are literally paying money saying, I don't have the capacity or the ability to communicate myself and defend myself. You are literally raising your hand and saying, I am an infant or person of unsound mind. When you do that, you literally become essentially property of the court. And I mean that in a literal sense, like a box or a table or money. Like you become literally physical property of the court. A bar card attorney is essentially an administrator of the court's property. So that's why they use the word represent. You can't present yourself, so they have to do it for you. And that's why the re is put on front of the word present. A bar card represents you, which means they stand on your behalf because you are incapable of doing so. You are incapable of making decisions for yourself, which is why you also waive your rights and cannot claim your rights when you take on a bar card attorney as a client. It's very difficult. You have to get rid of the bar card completely. You have to file for ineffective assistance of counsel and fight and get rid of the bar card if you ever want to stand up and try to use your rights. Because if you have the bar card, you can't do that. They might let you do it, but really they can stop you from doing it anytime they want, right? A bar card lawyer is called an attorney at law. A non-bar lawyer is called an attorney in fact. Both of these terms are lawyers. Both of these terms are attorneys, right? There's different rules for each type, right? An attorney in fact is a non-bar lawyer or attorney that acts as your agent. So that's the agent-principal relationship. Everyone has the infinite ability to contract, and an attorney in fact is a contract-based attorney that has the ability to do specific things on behalf of another party as though they essentially are that person. Essentially, it is simply a better option than being a client because the power of attorney that is written between you and your agent lays out all the particular rules of the relationship, and this is the most important part, allows you to reserve all of your rights. An attorney, in fact, can be used for a son or daughter to take over a dying mother's estate. It can be used for convenience, for example, working on behalf of a busy celebrity, etc. There are many uses, but many people give away power of attorney without completely knowing all the power that is contained in that activity. For example, you give the DMV power of attorney when you send in titles to get the titles transferred, okay? And you should be very careful of what you sign to make sure you aren't doing this. You can type attorney in fact into the internet and find plenty of information. You will also find that you do not need any special qualifications or licenses to be one, or a bar card membership. If you are a child or you cannot handle your own affairs on a day-by-day basis, you hire an attorney at law and become a client. If you are coherent and you are an adult, you hire an attorney in fact or agent. As an attorney in fact, our job is to essentially assist you in presenting, not representing yourself. By operating in this manner, you become exponentially more powerful as both a plaintiff or a defendant. And then it goes on and on and on. And
so then with that, you'd be representing yourself. Like I'm imagining in the courtroom, I would be up there with information that my attorney in fact provided for me, but I'm up there attempting to defend myself against someone else who has a normal lawyer.
When you realize that that almost every bar card out there literally does not know absolutely fucking anything about literally anything, it becomes a much more manageable situation. Yes, at first it appears as though they have their nice suits and they have their nice briefcases and they talk certain things and they've said certain things, but you very, very rapidly realize that none of these people have even the slightest clue of absolutely anything. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it's hard because I saw such a different scenario when I was in court watching my lawyer and the other person's lawyer talking about codes and opening up this book, and then like the judge just sitting there and being like, okay, they're referencing this one code about phishing, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And then my lawyer's like, nope, and here's why. And like the dynamic that was going on, I would have never felt comfortable trying to be like, I mean, the whole time I've been like, hold on, let me try and figure out what that code is. I don't still know what it means. And just so maybe I've just been in a different situation where I've seen the lawyers going at it at such a technical level that I'm like, I don't know how I would have been able to present that way, even with an attorney, in fact, backing me up with all the information of showing me like, here's what to do. Because the things, at least with a good lawyer, and I know you're not really into lawyers, but like they pull facts together in a history and they pull pieces back in a way that I probably would not have been able to do. I wouldn't have been like, oh, 5 hours ago, you mentioned this one thing, and now I'm going to have your 2 reports thrown out because of this one little technical piece about how you got these reports made. Like that level of maneuvering, watching it humbled me to be like, I couldn't do that. And I know they will be more easy on you if you try and represent yourself. But even then, I don't know how it would have been in the situation I was in, watching what was happening, of like, I don't know if it would have been a good look, me trying to represent myself. But maybe this is just a one-off, and maybe
there's a couple of things I have to say about that. Number one, most importantly, is what people don't realize, especially in things like family court and divorce court. What's happening is that the attorneys are buds, and they're talking to each other on the phone. And everything you experienced was all just a show, and it was all just an excuse for your attorney to bill you for billable hours, and for the opposing attorney to bill their client for billable hours. You got to think most attorneys at law, I don't operate this way, by the way. I do a lump sum up front, and then that's it. And it's not time based, right? But with a time based, where they have what's called billables, what's happening is that when especially divorce court, they love this. So what they do is in divorce court, the one attorney over here, let's say with a man and a woman, the guy over here is telling his client, man, you're gonna get all this stuff, and you deserve more, and you're and then he's calling the other attorney and going, hey, what do you got, brother? And then the other attorney's going to the wife and saying, this son of a bitch, and fuck him, and we need to go after him, and then what happens is both attorneys they milk both clients, and they create billables for like hundreds and hundreds of hours and months and months and months of work, until both parties are completely emotionally and financially starved. And then now all of a sudden, magically, there's a settlement. Mm-hmm. This happens constantly.
I'm sure that happens a lot. Yeah.
All the time,
I'm sure,
right? I'm not saying that's what happened in your situation. I'm just saying that I wouldn't be surprised even for 5 seconds if that was all just a show that was put on to make you feel the way that you're telling me you feel, which is like, oh, wow, this is really great. I'm really glad I'm being represented. This is money well spent. When in actuality, it's all irrelevant and had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, maybe.
The law is the same way. You look at the law and it's like, even Title 8, Section 101, I just showed you 537 pages of fucking definitions. And you think, oh my God, I could never understand all this. But then when you start to read into it, you realize a lot of it's just crap. A lot of it doesn't even matter. Then you find these gems, like the definition of naturalization is more than just a gem. It's like it's a one of a kind, multi-trillion-dollar diamond of almost incomprehensible value. But the thing is, you find these really valuable pieces, and you just get rid of all the trash. And it's like panning for gold, and it's tough because it's all just trash. And then you finally get a big chunk of gold, and you go, holy Jesus, and you put it aside, right? And then, but a lot of the time you're just looking at trash, and that's kind of like the whole design of it. It's the same thing in the courtroom with the attorneys at law. It's all irrelevant. We call it irrelevant billables. So whenever they create little pet terms for us, we create little pet terms for them. So we've got irrelevant billables. I've got hearsay for hire. That's one of my favorite ones. And then we have bar cards. Those are our three favorite terms that we use quite often. really enrages the bar card, which is a lot of fun. So the thing is that and then you also got to realize too, yes, it's a difficult process to present yourself, but imagine the power and confidence and self-esteem, and imagine how much your life will change when you learn the hard way, but it's just like anything else. Childbirth is terribly difficult, and getting your first job or a new job is terribly difficult, and dating is terribly, everything's pretty tough. If you think about it, if you go through that process, think about this. You can't get tickets. Nobody can ever give you a fucking traffic ticket ever again, because you can just blast everybody from here to kingdom come. Anytime I get a ticket, I make tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars every single time. So please, if you pull me over, I'm like begging you for a fucking ticket. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to get crazy amounts of money. You know what I mean? It's going to be a federal trademark violation. It's going to be a 42 USC 1983 violation. It's going to be all this shit, and it's going to go on for years, and I'm going to get paid. And then the police station starts talking about me to the other police officers, and they go, don't pull this guy over. I'm going to be dealing with this shit for 7 years. You see? So the power that you will experience by going down this path is so tremendous. And once you go far enough into this, and you peel back the first very, very few thin layers, and you realize how much of a sham it all is, and how literally nobody has even the slightest fucking clue of anything. They're all pretending. That's when your whole world starts to really fucking shift, because you're never going to be scared of a bill. You're never going to be scared of a cop. You're never going to be scared of a ticket. You're never going to be scared of the system at all. You have now made the system your bitch.
So to go back to that end goal, what are maybe just a couple of the steps, now that we know some of these definitions too? What do you have newbies go through to be like, these are a couple important things and also what most people that's in your network, they're like, yes, Brandon, these are actually very helpful and I'm doing them now.
Yeah, well, let me go back to, because this whole conversation got off on a couple tangents, but we're going to go back to national. National is where we have to get back to. Okay. So you have this term citizen. Citizen, essentially, I've done so much research trying to really fully nail it down. It's just so convoluted. The word citizen essentially means government employee. If you want to just keep it really simple and just really, really tie it down as simple as I possibly can, it means a government employee. And compensation is not part of it. You can be you're a voluntary employee of the government if you don't get compensated, and you're a non-voluntary or compensated employee if you're getting paid. That's it. That's the only difference. Okay. So now we're going to look at this term national that's becoming so popular everywhere. State national, state national, state national. What is that? Okay. So the word national is defined in 8 USC 1101 subsection A21. And if you notice, the word is not capitalized. It's not a proper noun, right? The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. Now, the first word that people usually find on here is the word permanent, which is actually an oxymoron. If you look at the definition of permanent, the term permanent means a relationship of continuing or lasting nature as distinguished from temporary, but a relationship may be permanent even though it is one that may be dissolved eventually at the instance either of the United States or of the individual in accordance with law. So we just laugh at this because it's just a shit show. So we just remove that word completely. We don't see that word as actually having any real meaning. So if I were to replace the word state with the word nation and replace the word person with the definition and remove the word permanent, now we're starting to see a very, very simple and clear definition of what a national is. The term national means an individual or organization owing allegiance to a nation. Mm-hmm. It's so simple. It's so simple, in fact, that it's almost unbelievable that it could be that simple. It can't even possibly be. It's craziness, right? So the question is, for example, on an I-9 form is a really great place to see this, because people are like, oh, this is all bullshit. Nah, fucking sovereign citizens. If you look on an I-9, it literally says, this is for when you get a job, this is the employment eligibility verification. Box 1 is a citizen of the United States. Box 2, a non-citizen national of the United States. It's right there. You'll see it on a lot of other documentation too. It's not you can type in non-citizen, national of the United States, Department of State, and it'll pop right up and it'll tell you certificates of non-citizen nationality, all sorts of stuff. You can find all sorts of good stuff. Certificates of U.S. non-citizen national status. This is not a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's very simple. That's what it. Now, a national is an individual or organization that owes allegiance to a nation. Now, if you owe allegiance to United States, which doesn't mean you live in the United States. You could be naturalized into Antarctica. You can owe allegiance to a whole bunch of different states. I'm actually a tri-national. I'm a national of 3 different nations. So, but I'm only physically located in one of those 3 nations, but I'm a national of 3 different nations, right? Now, if you owe allegiance to the nation called United States, you become 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A22, a national of the United States. The term national of the United States means A, a citizen of the United States, or B, and this is where all the excitement is, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. So this subsection B is the definition of the term non-citizen national of the United States from the I-9 box 2, right? Mm-hmm. Now this gets very exciting. If you look at 22 CFR 51.2, people don't realize this. Even the fucking passport office doesn't realize this. A passport may be issued only to a U.S. national. They won't tell you that. They'll tell you that a passport is issued only to a U.S. citizen. That is completely false information. 22 U.S.C. 212 is also very clear. Who are the persons that are entitled to a passport? No passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. And then you have things like 8 USC 1401. This one talks about how, and this is extreme proof. This is as proof can be, that nationality and citizenship are 2 entirely monstrously different subjects. The following shall be nationals and citizens of the United States at birth. And then you have 8 USC 1408, which is the following shall be nationals but not citizens of the United States at birth. So this is very, very clear. Nationality and citizenship are 2 completely different things. It's like talking about a 1964 Lincoln Town Car and comparing that to like a certain breed of cheetah that comes from like the South Sahara Desert. That's how far apart the ideas of nationality and citizenship is. 2 completely different planets, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're doing as a non-citizen national is you're getting rid of one of those planets and you're retaining and keeping the other one. You're retaining nationality and shedding your citizenship. And that's how you become a non-citizen national of the United States. And it's very, very simple. A non-citizen national of the United States does not mean you live in the United States. A citizen lives in the United States typically. Or there's also laws that say that even if they're not in the United States, they basically are anyways. They operate as though they are. Mm-hmm. Nationals could be in the United States or out of the United States. Location has nothing to do with it. Domicile and residence has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's all about allegiance. You can be in France. You could be on Jupiter. You could be on a different planet or a star and have allegiance to the United States. So what happens is that if you're a non-citizen national of the United States and you understand the way that naturalization works, taxation becomes very, very simple. And the reason why is there's only two major classifications of taxation. And that comes from 26 CFR 1.871-1. For purposes of the income tax, alien individuals are divided generally into two classes, namely resident aliens and non-resident aliens. And now we understand. A citizen is always going to be a resident alien. Even if they're not in the United States, they're still considered a resident alien as per the law. A non-citizen national of the United States is wherever he or she naturalizes into, and he or she can naturalize into anything at any time, thousands or even billions of times per day or per hour or per minute or per second. So if a non-citizen national says or confers that he is not in the United States, he is effectively a non-resident alien. Non-resident alien individuals are taxable only on certain income from sources within the United States. Now, this is what everyone is doing, though. This is what everyone is doing, and this is where you see naturalization in the tax code. This is, as far as I'm concerned, again, everything is naturalization. So this section is what everyone does. This is the section, this is the huge monster landmine right here. I'm going to show it to you. And this is what everyone who's listening to this podcast has done. And this is the major issue of all taxation. However, non-resident alien individuals may elect to be treated as U.S. residents for purposes of determining their income tax liability. So when you filled out a W-9 tax form, which everyone does, what happens is in section 2, you attest to the fact, I am a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person. And it says here, signature of U.S. person. Now, let me ask you, if you signed under penalty of perjury this document, did you, by chance, confer the nationality of a state called United States upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever? Mm-hmm. The answer is yes, you did. You didn't live in the United States until you signed the W-9, or until you got a driver's license, or until you signed up for voter registration. You didn't live in state of California until you told them you lived in state of California. You didn't live in United States until you told them you lived in the United States or told them you were a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person. Naturalization is the only way you can be located in a completely undefined location. There's no other way to be there. And that's how it works.
So it sounds like you need to change the W-9, like change it to kind of what you were suggesting, some made up address. You can still have your mailing address, but don't put it in there. You can't have a license. And what was the third thing that there's
voter registration.
Piece. Yeah, that.
Now,
like,
keep
are those
in
the three
mind,
things?
now this gets more fascinating. Let's say you do want to vote, which is very pointless. I think a lot of people are realizing that now. But let's say you really want to vote. I have a lot of conservative people that love my stuff. I try to do the best I can to figure everything out so people can still do things, even if they, maybe they're just not ready to, they still have some hope associated with. Now, you have two persons. You have Brandon Joe Williams in upper and lowercase, and then you have the public corporation called Brandon Joe Williams in all capital letters, which is a separate person. You can sign that person up for voter registration, and you're not the one signing up for it. Mm-hmm. You would literally sign the document by Brandon Joe Williams in all cap, upper and lowercase, comma, agent for Brandon Joe Williams in all caps, comma, principal. You would literally sign the document like that. So you're saying that I'm not actually the person who's contracting, but I have a right as the agent to contract on behalf of this other person. So you're naturalizing what's called the ens legis into state of California so that you can vote. So if you do it that way, you actually are still not a resident of California.
Mm-hmm. So that's how you could sign all the forms.
You can sign everything like that. Yep. And you can open up a company or a trust. I have a trust called Brandon Joe Williams. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the ens legis that the government opened for me? Are you talking about a trust? You could have 10 trusts called Brandon Joe Williams, and they all have different EIN numbers. Whoa, hold on a second there. Which person, because all 10 trusts are all separate persons, which person are you talking about? If someone calls you, if the IRS calls you, oh, we're looking for Brandon Joe Williams, there's 10 of them here. Which one do you want?
Is this what I know I heard in one of your interviews where you were talking about getting a car and be able to get a car for free. And I think I did not hear the details of it, but I know it was the way of signing a document. Is this the same lane of signing it a specific way?
Yes, but that is a completely different subject. That has to do with what's called negotiable instruments and securities and transferring securities.
Well, which ones do you think? Because I think if I think about what could be easy to understand around like, do I actually owe money? Student loans is a big thing. But maybe topics like that might be interesting. Like, how would you think about having loans? Like, could you get out of them by using this kind of method? Or
beyond get out of them, you can actually sue them for breach of contract for giving you the loan.
Tell me more about that.
So the way it works is you have the term money, right? Everybody thinks that money are the green things in their pocket. That's absolutely not even remotely true. The definition of money from Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, it says, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. And then from Black's Law, the definition of money, in usual and ordinary acceptation, it means gold, silver, or paper money used as circulating medium of exchange. And this is the most important part, and does not embrace notes, bonds, evidences of debt, or other personal or real estate. Then we ask ourselves, okay, what's in our pocket? Federal Reserve, ding, 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 notes. Mm-hmm. So wait a second. Federal Reserve notes, it says right on it that it's a note. Federal Reserve note. But wait a second. It says right here, Federal Reserve note.
We're looking at a $100 bill, by the way, for anyone who cannot see the screen.
Yeah. I mean, you can pull one out of your wallet. It says Federal Reserve note right across it in big, huge letters. It says here, and does not embrace notes. So, okay. So what's in my wallet is not money. So what in the is it? The answer to that question is they're actually called negotiable instrument, which is basically it's a security. You basically just have little security bonds in your pocket, okay? Mm-hmm. The word instrument means bond or contract, or it's a very, very vague term, document. It could even go that basic. It's super, super vague and basic. The term negotiable means transferable. Like the word negotiation, when it comes to negotiable instruments, that term means like the way in which an instrument is assigned or transferred or redeemed. Negotiable, negotiability, negotiation, that all has to do with basically how securities are moved around. But it really, really simple, okay? So we find out, okay, so it's a negotiable instrument. So what are the different types of negotiable instrument? And you can go on and get lost in that. It's actually very, very simple. UCC 3, Section 104 explains it to you. There's only two types of negotiable instrument. You have an unconditional promise or unconditional order to pay. That's it. And then you go to the bill, you find out an unconditional promise to pay is called a promissory note. An unconditional order to pay is called a bill of exchange. So that's it. Everything that in this weird, convoluted, upside down world that we live in is either a promissory note or a bill of exchange. And we go to the Bill of Exchange Act, and it gets even crazier, because then we have here these definition section. Bill means bill of exchange, and note means promissory note. So when your utility bill comes in the mail, that bill is actually a bill of exchange. A bill of exchange is money. They're sending you money. You are failing to perform on the bill of exchange every single time you send in Federal Reserve notes, which is the most irrelevant thing in the world. It's like sending crocheted elephant caricatures. It literally has nothing to do with anything to send anybody a Federal Reserve note, okay? Bill means bill of exchange, and note means promissory note. Okay, so what's in your wallet? What's in your pocket? Those are unconditional promises to pay, which is called a promissory note. The short version of the term promissory note is just the word note. Federal Reserve note, which means Federal Reserve promissory note, which means Federal Reserve unconditional promise to pay. Which is so funny, because then So if the Federal Reserve is promising to pay, or wait a second, who's on this Federal Reserve note? What do we have here? We've got the United States of America is on there, and we have this other thing called the Federal Reserve is on here. Are there any other parties? Well, we have the signatures. We have the U.S. Treasury, the Secretary of the Treasury. We have these two signatures on here. Okay. So there's two parties here. We have Federal Reserve and we have the United States of America. These are two different persons, I guess, or entities, right? So this is a promissory note. So one of these two entities is promising the other entity to pay or perform at some point in the future. This gets very interesting. If we go back to where we found the location of the person called United States, remember? Subsection H, location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now check this out. Look at the name of this section. Location of debtor. UCC 9-307 is talking about the location of this person called United States, which is, you see it on the dollar bill. So it's a promissory note, and UCC 9-307 is telling you that this person called United States on this note is located in the District of Columbia. So these are promises to pay between an entity located in the District of Columbia called the United States and another entity, which I'm not totally sure where that one's located, called Federal Reserve. That's what quote unquote money in your pocket actually is. It's a promissory note. And what's funny is that the District of Columbia isn't even a part of the United States of America. It's a totally separate, incorporated foreign world. So what's funny is it's not even an American thing. So then you start figuring out, you start going down this rabbit hole of what is a negotiable instrument and how does it work and that kind of thing. And you start to find a lot of really interesting information. So the first thing you have to learn when you start going down the rabbit hole of negotiable instruments is there's a term called holder, which I'm not going to pull up because it's very simple. It's whoever is in possession of the note or basically has the rights to have possession of the note. Like, basically, it's very simple. So like when you have like if I were to, I have my wallet on me right now. So if I were to pull out a Federal Reserve note out of my wallet right now, I can identify this particular $20 Federal Reserve note by its serial number. So this particular serial number is PL 494-77727A. Okay, so I am the holder of note serialized PL 494-77727A. It's very simple. He who holds, essentially. I mean, there's a little bit more to it, and it gets a little bit more exciting, but essentially you can think of it that simply, and it's pretty functional, right? And people know that. So I'm the holder, and then what do? You give it to another person, and now they become the holder, right? It's very simple. That's the technical way in which exchanging of notes, securities, it's all securities, actually functions. Okay. Now, there's a whole nother thing that's the most important thing. So if you don't have, let's say you get someone slides a mortgage document across the table and they say, "Sign here, sir." So when they say "sign here, sir," what they're asking you to do is they're actually asking you to endorse, not sign. The word endorse on the back of a check, you typically see it spelled with an E, but if you look in UCC 3, the original spelling of the word back in the day, it's more of a purist spelling, is actually with an I. I use it with an I. It means basically the same thing as the E, but the E definition has another definition that can get confused with it. So if you use the I spelling, it's a lot more clear, typically, right? So an endorsement means a signature. We're just going to skip all that alone or accompanied by other words is made on an instrument for the purpose of negotiating the instrument, restricting payment of the instrument, or other things we're not going to get into. But you can see here what you're doing is you're basically when they slide the mortgage documents or the loan documents across the table and they say "sign here, sir," what they're actually asking you is, please endorse this in a way to allow it to be redeemable, transferable, and assignable. Basically, they're asking you to release the document, essentially, if you really want to get down to the brass tacks of it, right? Now, what happens is you sign with your name and you don't put any specific information on the signature line as to its redeemability, assignability, or transferability. Now, what's happening in that moment is it's actually a particular type of endorsement called a blank endorsement. When endorsed in blank, an instrument becomes payable to bearer and may be negotiated by transfer of possession alone until specially endorsed. So what does that mean? When you don't state any information and you just sign your name like an idiot on everything, including your receipts when you use your credit card, by the way, what you're doing is you're basically just releasing that instrument, which has the same value in law as Federal Reserve notes, to anyone who wants it. It becomes what's called payable to bearer, which just means payable to literally whoever the fuck has it in their possession. And you basically, what's happening is that there's this gigantic pile of money, and they're sliding this gigantic pile of money across the table, and they're saying, sir, please release interest in this gigantic pile of money. When you sign without stating the payee, that's exactly what you're doing. You're doing a blank endorsement, which basically translates to, I have absolutely no interest, claim, or desire in this gigantic pile of money. Thank you very much, but no thanks. You stand up and you walk away. That's what's actually happening in that instant, right? Now, and I'll explain how that works and why that is, right? But we have this other thing called a special endorsement. You're actually stating the payee on the instrument. And the wording on that, when you get into it, it's the same as a check, right? So if you pull up a picture of a check, we can see here, what is the terminology that's used on a check when you're writing the payee of the check? You can see here, pay to the order of. That's the terminology. And that comes straight out of the Bill of Exchange Act. They literally say that the payee has to be written in this way, pay to the order of blah. So it's actually part of the law, right? Now, when they slide the mortgage documents across the table and they say, sign here, sir, the most powerful thing you can do in your whole life is you need to take this word sign and signature and throw that fucking word in the trash and burn it. Whenever you hear the word sign or signature for the rest of your life, you're going to instantly think, oh, endorsement. Oh, he's talking about an endorsement. Sign here, sir. Oh, this is an endorsement. Oh, hold on a second. Stops everything. Stop the proceedings. They're asking you, they're not asking you sign here, sir. They're saying, please endorse this instrument so that we can redeem, assign, or transfer it. Mm-hmm. If you write in the signature section, pay to the order of, and write your own name there, what you're doing is you're claiming the value of the instrument. So let's say, for example, it's a house and it's a $650,000 house and it's going to be at 4% interest for 30 years. And then it says on there that the final number, when everything's said and done, that you're going to pay is $1 million. That promissory note, which Federal Reserve notes are promissory notes too, it's basically what they just slid across the table and put in front of you is $1 million Federal Reserve note. When you write paid to the order of Brandon Joe Williams in all caps, you're saying, I claim this entire $1 million. You can't have it. I'm not donating it to you. So what happens is $1 million gets put on your account. The house was only $650,000. So you literally get paid $350,000 to buy a free house. And
the all caps thing is important. Your name in all caps, right? And you have to have your full name, right? Middle name too?
That's the party that's actually there. Like all the documents and stuff, it's all going to have the all caps name on it because that's the commercial entity, person. Mm-hmm. You're the agent on behalf of the commercial entity that's doing the transaction. Mm-hmm. You're the attorney in fact. You already are. Everyone is an attorney in fact. Because when you operate that person of the all capital letter name, that ins legis, which means creature of the law, When you're operating this thing, you are operating this thing as an attorney, in fact, because that is a person and you are operating for that person in a legal capacity. You are the attorney. Mm-hmm. Everyone's an attorney. Everyone, everywhere is an attorney. The only way that you wouldn't be an attorney is if you were born on a farm and there was no birth certificate, there's no social security number, there's no driver's license, you've never signed up for voter registration. I mean, like Amish people, basically. Mm-hmm. That'd be the only type of person walking the earth that wouldn't really be functioning as an attorney in some area of their life. Every single person that doesn't fit that category is operating as an attorney. They just don't know it.
So you signing that document, it could be a mortgage, it could be an auto loan, it could be any document like that where you just add pay to the order of, put your full name in caps. I'm assuming that, let's just say you're a mortgage lender, they're like, that's not right. The auto loan place, they're like, that doesn't work. You need to re-sign it.
The whole building is going to burst into flames. But the thing, that's where litigation comes in. Like you're going to be in for a little bit of a ride. You know what I mean?
Yep. For everything, right? Or auto loans easier, I'm guessing, than a mortgage. That's probably going to be a fight.
Because the thing is they start sweating. They are freaking out because the thing is, if people start doing this, then their whole organization, their whole everything just goes bye-bye.
Have you seen it not go hard? Like where someone signs it and then they are able to actually... We've
seen all sorts of things. We've seen in 30 days, all of a sudden there's a call and someone says, we get this one actually a lot. Mr. Williams, I'm here from Ford Finance and I'm calling you because we're regarding the promissory note of the documents that you signed when you bought the car. There's something wrong with the way you sign, and we actually need you to come down and re-sign the document. Oh, really? Fascinating. What exactly is wrong with the signature? I don't know. The people on the phone have no fucking clue. They were just told by some higher up to call this guy and get him in to, quote, re-sign the documents, right? Mm-hmm. There's that there, but now so many people are doing it now that they're starting to kind of notice it and kind of freak out. But I don't mind, because the thing is that everyone is talking about this shit now. Even in the financing companies, they're talking about this shit. So to me, we win either way. If everyone starts talking about this shit and everybody's doing it, I'm in a smaller category where when I give you this thing, if you don't accept it, I'm going to sue the ever-loving fuck out of you. And I'm going to be so fucking unrelenting. I'm going to make your whole life a living hell, because technically speaking, they can't actually. Anyways, I'll get into that. I'll get into the part of, so there's a 4-part process. Okay. So the first part we already covered, it's the holder. You hold the check, let's say. Okay. Now, the second part, a check is a negotiable instrument. It's a bill of exchange. So let's say we're looking at this check on the screen. Let's say it's just empty, okay? So we're going to put the date here. We're going to put the amount here. We're going to put paid to the order of. Now, whatever you write in this paid to the order of, this is all part of the endorsement. You are endorsing the check. You are clarifying the assignability, transferability, or redeemability of this particular instrument. And you are restricting the redeemability to one particular person, which could be an estate, trust, company, corporation, a partnership, or association, you see? Mm-hmm. So it could be a name, it could be incorporated, it could be, this one is a church. So this person called presiding bishop of this other person called Episcopal church, whatever. That is the endorsement. It's a special endorsement. A special endorsement is an endorsement that states the payee. Now, you can take a check like this and write $20 on it. And where it says pay to the order of, you can write the word bearer. That's a blank endorsement. It doesn't state the payee. You literally just legally manufactured cash. You can give this check to Bob. Bob can give it to Jane. Jane can give it to Jennifer. Jennifer can give it to Starbucks. Starbucks can give it to, and it can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, just like a Federal Reserve note, forever and ever and ever, until one day someone decides to claim the instrument, which on the back, you have the endorsement on the back. They would place the special endorsement on the back, paid to the order of Brandon Joe Williams. They're claiming that instrument, and they're ending negotiation of that instrument. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at a Federal Reserve note and you look at the signatures, and you should look at some old Federal Reserve notes. They literally say payable to the bearer on the freaking note. These are bearer securities. These are payable to the bearer. These are blank endorsed, payable to the bearer securities. That's what Federal Reserve notes are. When you realize how all this endorsement negotiability stuff works, you realize that you can write it to whoever you want. You can do whatever you want. You can do all this crazy shit. Now, one of the most powerful things you can do, and it's driving these companies absolutely fucking crazy. I mean, they're just like, their whole heads are bursting into flames, is you can use a different type of endorsement called a qualified endorsement. And the wording on that you're going to write in the signature area is the term without recourse. You can literally just sign a document without recourse and then with your dumbass squiggly name underneath. Now, what without recourse means is I never have to perform on this, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. Meaning, like if you bought a car and you endorsed the documentation without recourse, you're literally saying in that without recourse, you're saying I'm never ever going to perform or pay on this contract at all whatsoever, and you agree that you can never ever sue me or do absolutely anything to enforce this contract ever. If they accept it, which is the most hilarious part of this whole process, acceptance is defined as delivery. Mm-hmm. So if you sign without recourse or endorse without recourse and you place it on the table and you slide it back across the table and they pick it up, it's delivered. Mm-hmm. They can't, that's it. They can't, then you start getting into what's called dishonor, and then there has to be evidence of dishonor. And then if they say it's dishonored, you can sue them for breach of contract. It's totally legal. Once it's delivered, it's accepted. So once you write without recourse and once it's delivered, you just got yourself a free car, and there's not a goddamn thing they can do about it. And what they'll do is they'll play dumb and they'll say re-sign, they'll try to repo the car. You can sue them for breach of contract and you will win. The law is very clear on how all this works in the definitions. Once it's delivered, it is accepted. So we have this thing called HITA that I've developed. It's very simple. It's an acronym that shows the entire process of the exchangeability of a negotiable instrument. H stands for holder. I stands for endorsement. T stands for tender. A stands for acceptance. Tender is a really interesting definition. So here's the definition of tender. It's the offer of performance, not performance itself. And when unjustifiably refused, places other party in default and permits party making tender to exercise remedies for breach of contract. Literally, this is exactly what we do. Mm-hmm. If I write without recourse and I extend my hand and you don't accept it, we're going straight to court, motherfucker. Breach of contract. You can't do that. So not only are you going to get the free house, not only are you going to get all the interest that was generated on the instrument, now you're also going to get damages for breach of contract. So that $1 million, the house was $650. Now you've got a free house plus $350,000 plus now you're going to tack on additional damages because they failed to perform. So now you're walking away with not with $350,000. Let's say it's another $100,000 because of all the work that you have to do now to sue them for breach of contract. Now you get the free house and you walk away with $450,000 in your pocket.
What's the process, the average process you see for someone going up against a mortgage company, which like, how long is that? What does that actually look like? We're involved in a few cases right now. And like I said, I have several in the works. So it's definitely not going to happen anytime soon. Mm-hmm. If I had to say how long you would need to litigate, I'd say a year to 2 years on average. As I win more and more cases, I think that amount of time is going to go down dramatically. I think for your first big win, I think from zero to hero, you're looking at a year or two of work. Which you post, which I love, a lot of, like, you're very transparent about, here's the cases I'm in, here's where I just won, here's where I lost, here's what I learned, which is really fascinating to follow along with your journey against, you know, very large corporations and situations. So, thank you. Yeah. And then that's what also made me be like, oh, it seems like this might be a while to actually get to some kind of resolution for, I mean, you're also taking on massive projects. Well, you know, I've got $460 million in cases and it's about ready to be billions. And the thing is that even on top of that, think about this. If you look at my American Express case, I'm asking them literally for infinite money. I'm asking them for a black card that has no limit that I never have to pay for.
And the way that's going to work is I'm going to give them limited power of attorney to do qualified and special endorsements on my behalf on all transactions. Every single credit transaction is an instrument that's endorsed. The little chip on your credit card, this little chip, if you look up what it means, type in chip and go through ECM and you start look, it's literally your signature is literally embedded in that little chip. That's why if you use the chip, a lot of times you don't have to sign on Square or whatever. If you use the chip, you may or may not need to sign, but if you swipe, it always makes you sign. When you start going down these rabbit holes and you start to understand how all this works, you're actually literally producing an unconditional promise to pay. If you look in your card member agreement, it'll literally have a section. All of them do. Every single bank, it says promise to pay. You promise to pay. You always use the same word, promise to pay, promise to pay, promise to pay. And then you look on your receipt whenever you use your credit card, and it says on there, you promise to perform or you promise to pay or something like that according to the card member agreement. It'll have some terminology like that on the receipt. And what they're saying is that you promise to pay. So literally that transaction, you are manufacturing a security. That security is money. You are manufacturing money every single time you use your credit card. And then what you're doing is you're failing to claim the value of that money through a blank endorsement, and you're giving or donating that money to the credit institution, and those credits are not being credited to your account. When you use a special endorsement and all the transactions are automatically defaulted to state the payee, paid to the order of Brandon Joe Williams, every time you pay for anything with a credit card, it instantaneously discharges off of itself. So in my lawsuit, what I'm doing is I'm saying, give me a Centurion Black card that has no limit, swap all my endorsements from a blank endorsement to a special endorsement on my behalf. I'll give you a limited power of attorney. And now all instruments are automatically self-discharged. You don't even need to send me a statement. There's nothing to state. It's going to be zero every single time at the end of the month. It's zero instantly. As soon as I put the card in the reader and pull it out, it's a zero. And that's infinite money, right? And I'm going to explain how that works and how they do that, but I got to get through this HITA thing first. So holder, endorsement, tender. Here's another definition of tender: an offer of money, the act by which one produces and offers to a person holding a claim or demand against him the amount of money which he considers and admits to be due in satisfaction of such a claim or demand without any stipulation or condition. Okay, so tender is interesting. Tender is like basically tender is like just unconditional offer. Here you go. Like putting a $20 Federal Reserve note on the table and saying, here you go. There's no conditions. I don't need an invoice. I don't need anything. Just boom, here you go. Okay, thank you very much for the services. Here you go. That's tender, right? And then acceptance is defined as delivery. So once the guy reaches over and grabs the $20 Federal Reserve note off the table and takes possession of it, it's now accepted by delivery. And that's HITA. And now he becomes the holder. And now he goes through HITA. Now he can endorse the instrument, and then he can tender the instrument, and then someone else accepts the instrument, and then now they become the holder. When you have a bearer security, which is like a Federal Reserve note, it tells you right here how that works. When endorsed in blank, an instrument becomes payable to bearer and may be negotiated by transfer of possession alone until specially endorsed. So a good example of this is everyone knows, is very common. Whenever you get a mortgage, usually the mortgage company sells the note to a different mortgage company within 60 or 90 days, sometimes even to another time, and then another time, and then another time, maybe once or twice typically, right? What's happening is that document is payable to the bearer. They can just transfer it by possession alone until somebody writes the payee on it. So once the second bank gets it, and it's still blank endorsed, they can still move it to another one. Then the third bank gets it, and then the third bank is like, okay, we're going to keep this. And then it goes special endorsed, and then it goes to what's called the Federal Reserve discount window, which is what I'll explain now. Once the instrument is released with a blank endorsement and the banking institution gets it back, what they do is they take that instrument to what is called the Federal Reserve discount window. And there's a whole website, frbdiscountwindow.org. And they're fairly clear about what this thing is and how it works. And they've got a whole website, and they've got you can do what's called an OC10 agreement, and you can actually sign up and you can get window access yourself, and you can open up your own bank. And you can, there's another website, federalreserve.gov/payment systems/master account and services database. So this is a database where they literally tell you every single banking institution in the entire country that has access to the Federal Reserve discount window. And you can go in here and type in, let's say, American Express. And it pops up, American Express National Bank. Click on that, click submit, scroll down. American Express National Bank is an institution that has had Federal Reserve discount window access since October 17th, 1994. The city of this particular organization that has this particular access is Sandy, Utah. The local of the 12 main reserve banks, Federal Reserve Bank, which one is the one that services American Express National Bank, which is a person, by the way, keep that in mind, is the San Francisco Bank. Of the 12 different main banks, San Francisco is the one that has the window that American Express National Bank uses. And then what kind of insurance do they have? They have FDIC. All this information's here. And then you can even see all the different banking institutions that have requested access by clicking on the Request for Access button. For example, one that's very popular, I find very interesting, is Old Glory Bank in Oklahoma. There's actually some celebrities, some Republican celebrities that are opening up their own bank. And it's a pretty fascinating. Larry Elder, I think, is one of the guys opening it. It's actually cool. I actually find this kind of fascinating. It's patriot banks that are kind of coming up right now. So if we go to the Federal Reserve discount window access request, and we type in Old Glory Bank, we're going to hit submit. So Old Glory Bank, Elmore City, Oklahoma. The date they submitted a request to get window access was January 3rd, 2023. That request was approved. When was that request approved? It was approved about 2.5 months later on March 16th, 2023. What initial tier, I don't know a whole lot about this, tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 under account access. I would need to get into this and look and see what this is. What tier are they looking to open up this access with? Tier 1. What of the 12 banks in the country are they going to be working with for window access? Kansas City. And then what's their insurance level? FDIC. Now, what's happening is the bank, and I don't even think they know this. It's so crazy that people do this. They just don't even know what they're doing. What they do is as per 12 USC 412, what they're doing is they're taking this blank endorse instrument that you release without any conditions. Just yeehaw, boys, blank check, right? You just left a gigantic pile of money on the table and you said, nah, fuck it. You guys can have it. I'm good. Thanks. They take that instrument, the promissory note, and as per 12 USC 412, they write an application for notes. So they write an application to swap that original instrument for Federal Reserve notes. And it says right here that there has to be a collateral or collateral security that has to be offered in order to get those Federal Reserve notes. The collateral security thus offered shall be notes, drafts, bills of exchange, or acceptances. So they write up this application for notes. They collateralize the original promissory note. They swap it at the window for Federal Reserve notes, and then they give you back your own fucking money. That's the way all loans are funded. You fund your own loans. Everyone is funding your own loans. But because you never claimed the value of the original instrument, you don't have any right to the value of the original instrument. You literally donated it or abandoned it completely. You didn't want it. It's like giving away a car. You literally just gave away a car every single time. You didn't know that, and that's where fraud comes in. That's where litigation comes in. So what I did was, I was so fascinated by this, and I said, well, what is the special, and what are the kind of endorsements that these banks are placing on these instruments before they take it to the Federal Reserve discount window? That's what I want to know. So I had all my fans, of which, I have a lot of them, and they're all pretty wild. I had them all run out and try to collect up as many documents as they can. And we started finding some of the documents that we were getting had the goddamn endorsement on it. And I was like, holy shit, this is it. This is what they're doing. So if you look on the screen, these are screenshots of various endorsements that we've gotten our hands on, and you're going to see all the same terminology I've been explaining to you. This is, it's a blank endorsed instrument. It floats around. And then at some point in time, someone goes, nope, we're going to end negotiation of this. We're taking it to the fucking window. This is the endorsement that they use when they take it to the window. And for people who are on audio only, I'm going to read this. Without recourse, pay to the order of Wells Fargo Bank, N.A. by BY, and then there's a line, and then they sign there, like what you would normally think a signature to be. And then below that, it has their name, Jackie C. Mueller, and then her position in the corporation, Senior Vice President. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a hybrid of a qualified and a special endorsement. It's qualified and special. It's qualified because it uses the without recourse. Now you got to think, if Wells Fargo Bank, N.A. is collateralizing this security and swapping it for Federal Reserve notes, but the endorsement says, I'm never, ever going to pay this back, and there's nothing you can do about it legally without recourse, they never have to pay back the loan to the Federal Reserve. When the Federal Reserve gives them that $1 million in Federal Reserve notes, they never have to pay any of that back to the Federal Reserve. It's free money. They turn around and they pay off the $650,000 house with the $1 million from the window they never need to pay back. They pocket $350,000 immediately, plus you're paying them back the entire $1 million loan again. And that's why in the first 60 days, they always offload the loan for like 60% or 70% of the value of the loan. So if it's $1 million, they sell it for $700,000. Within 60 days, they made $1 million on the transaction. Do you know how many minutes of work it takes to put a stamp on something and put it into a FedWire system and swap it for Federal Reserve notes? It's probably 5, 10, 15 minutes of work. $1 million. You can write these exact same endorsements without recourse, paid to the order of JP Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., Republic State Mortgage Company, by, sign. So how would it look? Without recourse. And then I would do it. Next line. Pay to the order of. Next line. Brandon Joe Williams in all capital letters. Next line. By, line. That's where I would sign my name. Brandon Joe Williams. Below that, it would say name, Brandon Joe Williams, attorney in fact. I mean, the position, whatever you put on that second part at the very end, you could put attorney in fact, you could put agent, you could put anything in there. It really doesn't matter. But basically what you're doing is now you're doing exactly what the banks are doing. And basically what you're saying in English, here's another example. What you're saying in English when you do this is you're saying, thank you very much. I am making you, Mr. Bank, the fiduciary. And your job is to go to the window and bring me back my Federal Reserve notes. Now, in order for there to be a contract, there has to be some kind of consideration. Basically, the way I look at it is the bank is no longer the lender. The bank is the lender when you sign with a blank endorsement. The bank is not the lender when you sign with a qualified special endorsement. The bank is a currency exchange. They're taking your money that you have claimed on that piece of paper, that $1 million bill, essentially, and that you are allowing them to go to the window, swap it, and bring that shit right back to you. They're a currency exchange. So how do currency exchanges work in, let's say, Europe? You would pay a small percentage currency exchange fee for the service of having your currency exchanged. That's all you pay. So when the $1 million, it's discounted, which means that there's some fees associated with it. So let's say the $1 million comes back $950,000. So the $650,000 that you wanted to buy the house with, that comes off the top. Now what's left is $300,000, and then you pay them a 2% or 3% currency exchange rate fee, service fee. That would be 10,000. I don't know, to make it 10,000. What's left? $290,000 that you put in your pocket. Your house is free and clear. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go to the title company, and you're going to, you need to get your deed, and you want to get the clean deed with no lien holder. And if they don't do it, you're going to sue them too. So if they don't perform, now you're suing them too. They're also going to pay you damages. So now you're suing the bank, you're suing the title company. Everyone's going to pay you damages. You're going to get the free house. Plus you're going to get all the additional money that was on the swap. It's all yours. Everything's yours. You become the bank. You are literally becoming the bank.
So I know we are getting way past our time. I do want to wrap up for your sake, but I wanted to end this conversation knowing that we will probably have more in the future.
Yeah, sure.
What do you view for the future? Because I'm just thinking of, okay, what does the future look like when these banks start dealing with this and these auto loan companies start doing this, and then they're maybe not loaning money to people anymore? Like, what does this future look like to you? Like, what's the state that you want to see it get to?
Well, we live in a socialist society and no one knows it. The government and these banks are supposed to be paying for literally everything. Your house, your car, everything is supposed to be paid for you. Mm-hmm. And the discount window is there for you, right? And if you'd like more information as to how you can get access to the window directly, you're going to look up what's called an OC10 agreement, OC-10. If you type in OC-10 space agreement, it'll pop right up. And that is the document, that is the contract that you will sign between yourself and the Federal Reserve, just like you saw Old Glory Bank doing, mm-hmm. trying to get Tier 1 access. The OC10 agreement is exactly how you get window access. Now, mm-hmm. that's basically if you want to have your own credit union or your own bank, you can start swapping your own instruments. You can start doing this yourself, which I haven't done yet, but it's on my list of things to do. I have a long list of things to do. So the future is going to be one of two things. Option number one is going to be where the Federal Reserve and the banks and the U.S. Treasury pay for everything for everyone. And that's actually, as per the law, if you read the Emergency Banking Act from 1933, when they took all the gold and silver out of circulation, they literally say in the Emergency Banking Act that everything is basically the government's obligation and the government's going to pay for everything. And if you want to see just straight up, literally in black and white, right in your face proof of that right now on the show, you would go to 18 USC 8. It's called obligation or other security of the United States defined. And it says here, the term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit. Look at this one. Bills, checks, drafts. So what they're saying is literally everything is an obligation or other security of the United States. Your fucking phone bill is literally an obligation or other security of the United States. It's not even your bill. That's why it comes in your name in all capital letters. That all capital letter name is a child of the government. It is a government employee. The Social Security number is your employee number for the person. All that person's bills are all mommy and daddy's bills. They're all mommy and daddy's. They're not.
So then no one's paying for anything, and we're in this state where now the government is having to pay for everything.
But they're failing to perform. Everyone is mm-hmm. failing to perform. Everybody. Mm-hmm. The bank's failing to perform. The government's failing to perform, and you are also failing to perform. Everyone is failing to perform. And that's why you have this madness where you have the debt. It is just getting worse and worse and worse. It's because everyone is failing to perform. And when you look up the definition of the word payment, that's also a total mindfuck. The definition of the word payment is performance on a duty, obligation, or contract. So performance and payment mean the same thing, and endorsement means the same thing. Endorsement is performance. Payment is performance. Endorsement is payment. When you get the bill and you endorse it and you send it back, it's legally, as per the definition, it is a payment. Legally. And the thing is, you can sue. I haven't done this yet. This is going to be fun. I'm going to do this. You can sue let's say you send the bill of exchange back endorsed to your utility company and they don't perform. You can sue them, and you can also drag the United States Treasury in under 18 USC 8 and say, guys, this is your obligation or other security. Why am I having to fucking deal with this? You can force them to deal with their own obligations.
This is such a crazy world.
I literally don't even know why I'm here. And you can sue them both, make them both defendants, and make them sort it out in a court of law. Dead serious.
This is wild. You are in a very wild space right now, the things that you're figuring out and the things that you like to look into. And I love it.
Yeah.
Were you like this as a child, like unraveling truths, trying to find out what the truth is? Like, what were you like as a kid?
So I was expelled from school. I think the first time was 5 or 6 years old, and then I think the second time was 8 years old. And
5? What were you doing? I have I have 4-year-olds and 6-year-old. Expelled? What were you doing at 5 to get expelled?
Just like joking and laughing and talking, just incessantly, to the point where like class literally could not take place. Like,
okay,
Brandon, you need to be quiet. Okay, sorry. And then no joke, like 15 seconds later, I'm snickering and throwing a paper airplane and poking someone with a ruler. And, it was horrible. It was like being in prison.
What would your parents do when you got expelled at 5?
Well, I had a single mom, and she was already stressed to the absolute max. She was so stressed all the time. So it was like horrible for her. I mean, it was just absolutely awful. But I just didn't really, it never registered like that in that way. It was just like,
yeah.
She's always been super ultra stressed and super ultra crazy about everything and super ultra overwhelmed. And it was just like, I don't really know what was going through my head at the time. I think it was just being in school sucks. And
you were 5. You were a kid.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain that time period very well, because then my mom was a paralegal. So what happened was the second time I got expelled, it was from a different school. And then at that point in time, the state of Indiana said that they would not allow me to go back into public school at all. They banned me from public school, but the law still stated that I had to legally go. Otherwise my mom was going to go and get in trouble. So my mom was freaked out, and she was a paralegal. So she sued the state of Indiana and said, you're not letting my child go to public school, but if he doesn't go, I'm going to get in trouble. So like, you guys are putting me in a very precarious situation. So what they did is there was a court order or something. And there was a therapy center in Indiana that was cut in half, and half of the therapy center became a school. And they had, all the people that worked there were all trained on how to deal with like really difficult students. And the one lady was actually trained in martial arts and all this other stuff. And the school started with me and just one other kid named Mitchell, who actually, ironically enough, recently messaged me from Facebook. I haven't talked to him since I was probably 9 years old. And I was probably 8, and Mitchell was probably like 14. And Mitchell was there because he had severe anger issues, which is what most of the people who were going into that particular school had. So that wasn't my problem. And I was definitely the smallest kid of all the kids that are going in there. So for me, it was basically like going to prison, sort of, kind of, because it's like, I have to be very friendly, very kind, very like, you so much as even say the wrong word and they'll just start swinging. And when they're 14 and you're 8, all it takes is a couple swings and you're in serious trouble. I'm quite a bit smaller than Mitchell. The cool thing about that situation though is that, as much as Mitchell might have hated me, which I'm sure he did because he hated everybody at that time, I was the only option. I mean, if you wanted any social contact at all, I am literally your only option. So he had a tendency to sort of go easy on me. He never beat me up. I don't think he ever, maybe something stupid like an ear pull or something, but never like, maybe he punched me like one time in the stomach or I don't know. It wasn't anything like super crazy, that was like out of this world, like getting desks smashed over my head or something like that. It was never anything like that. And then more kids started coming. This kid named Richie came into the program, and there's a lot of kids coming into the program pretty rapidly. And they all had anger issues. That seemed to be the average common denominator of everyone going into this particular school. And then I graduated out of that school after about a year or two. And then I went back into public school, but I was in the special ed course room. And then I remained in public school and the special ed course room for the remainder of my education, which I think I was maybe 12 or 13 or something. So that would be, what would that be? That would be like 6th or 7th grade, I think, is when I went back into the main public school system, maybe something like that. Mm-hmm. So I did middle school and then I did high school in the public school system, and just cheated, honestly, the whole time. The special ed kids were allowed to leave the main course room and go to the special ed course room for all the tests. And the special ed kids could ask the special ed teacher for assistance on the tests. So what I did was I would just say, Mrs. whoever, whatever, I'm going to go to the special ed classroom because, it's better for me to study or whatever. Oh yeah, no problem. I'd go, and then I would just essentially coerce the teacher in the special ed classroom to just feed me the answers, but I would do it in a way where I was like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, I don't quite understand like how this works. And she's like, yeah, you do this and you do that. Oh, and then, oh, okay. So you carry this here and then you do, and then how does this next part work? And I would just kind of coerce or goad her into showing me every single section of every single thing. And I aced all the exams for everything that way. And I ended up getting a what's called a core 40, which is like one step down from honors. And I didn't know literally a fucking thing about anything. That's basically my whole. And then I went to college for 1 year, which is just partying. I pledged 2 different fraternities, and I ended up getting kicked out of both of them. I'm actually not allowed on any Phi Sigma Kappa campus on the planet. I've actually been banned from every single chapter. Yeah, it's just pretty funny. The skulls, you've seen movies about the skulls. Yeah, so I'm banned from all skulls property worldwide, permanently, lifetime ban. So, but it was a lot of fun. I definitely can't complain.
Yeah, I mean, throughout your whole story, I hear threads of us, like why you are doing and where you are now. It seems like it's been a lifetime of being in a system that doesn't feel good, doesn't feel fair, and then figuring out what it looks like to get out of that structure in whatever way you could. And then here you are today, in a way, looking at a very different system, whether it be taxes, legal things, whatever, but kind of similar to what you were doing, like when you were younger, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I was an amateur hacker in my high school days too, and I used to hack into people's computers around town, and me and my buddies would sit around and laugh and fuck with their computer and do all sorts of goofy shit and scare them. And I used to turn on people's webcams without them knowing, and I would fuck with their computer, and then you would see them on the webcam go like this and like freak out and like lean over and just unplug the whole computer, and then you would try to search for that computer, and they never turned the computer back on again. So they must have they thought it was like possessed by demons, and they just chucked it in the trash can or something.
Jeez. Well, all right. Now we know what you'd be doing in your free time if you weren't trying to fight corporations. I want to do a quick lightning round with you that has nothing to do with any of this.
Okay, sure.
So the lightning round is I'm just going to ask you a question, and very quickly you just have to say what comes to mind. First thing, first answer.
Okay.
You ready? All right. First question, what is one book that everyone should read?
The Alabaster Girl by Zan Perian.
Wait, what does that repeat?
The Alabaster Girl by Zan Perian.
Okay.
It's a book about beauty and romance and love and women, really.
Okay. I love it. What is a favorite piece of advice that you've ever received?
I'll give you my favorite quote from a book, which essentially is advice. And it comes from The Alabaster Girl, actually. Seduction leads the holy crusade against the creeping compromise of mediocrity. because seduction is honest. Seduction will save us from our sins against beauty because seduction is our real selves shining. To be seduced is to be amazed, caught up, transformed. It is the ultimate calling of our hearts, the only true romance. And we are missing it on the earth in all our relationships in our entire lives. We are missing the seduction of our women, the seduction of our wives, the seduction of ourselves, the seduction of our very souls.
Wow. That's good. Okay. I love where that went because at first I thought you were about to try and pull up the word advice and what does advice mean? And then we're going to go on a whole tangent about the definition of the word advice. So I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll definitely check that book out. What is your favorite word? Person?
I don't know. I mean, I'm in love with words, so
I know.
I feel like I'm cheating by only saying one.
That's why this question is just specifically for you. I've never asked a guest this.
Favorite word? Maybe, I don't know. I have no idea.
You don't know?
No.
Of all the words that you look into, there's not one that lights you up the most. I saw it multiple times today on this episode. Of you lighting up about the definition of a word.
I mean, I guess naturalization, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, it's by far the most life-changing. I mean, by far. Mm-hmm. Just completely I was blasted off the planet when I finally really got that definition. I mean, it's a lot of the definitions are important, United States and person and all, instrument and all this stuff. It's all important, but I feel like for me and for what the world's going through right now, I feel like the term naturalization is literally the most important word in the English language. As of my research today, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have said that. I didn't know about the word naturalization. So, yeah.
There you go. That's a good one. Was there a moment, or what, if any, was there a moment where you felt so certain about something that you're like, this is right, that then you were like baffled that you found out you were wrong? Like, do you have any moments in mind?
Just probably in relationships, like my relationships with women. I went through a lot of difficulty. One of the reasons why I kind of went off into the sunset at a very young age was I was trying to figure out why I just could not communicate or interact with women. I just couldn't. It just totally fucked. And I went on this long 18-year journey of trying to figure out what it means to be a man and what is masculinity and the history of masculinity and what is femininity and that's why the book The Alabaster Girl is by far the most influential book I've ever read, by far. I mean, I feel like it's literally the Bible for all men, and it's not the Bible for women, but it's like an absolute tippy top must read for women. But it's literally the Bible for a man. And I guess that whole journey and just all the craziness that happened during that time period and the nightmares and the heartaches and the disaster and the moving across the country and being homeless and just losing everything and then gaining everything and then living in a high rise, and next day I'm on the street, and then, just all of it, that whole process of learning what it means to be a man and interact with women and just the whole dance of those energies and just that whole thing, I would say.
Wow. That's amazing. And I did not think that would be the answer. So that's really cool. So last question, what is, especially now hearing a little glimpse of the bumpy ride that you've been on throughout your life, what is either a lifestyle change or a habit or something you implemented that transformed your life or helped support you during those times, or something that you do now that you're like, this has been the most pivotal thing for me?
Well, when I started doing all this crazy law shit, everyone in my life evacuated as though I was a burning house fire. And what's funny is everyone in my whole life was totally like, COVID is a joke. Fuck COVID. Fuck all this. Like, this is all hilarious. House parties. Like, so many people during COVID went through like this massive rift where it was like all these people are coming out of the woodwork and they're going berserk and they're out and they're fuck you and they're my enemy and all these people, and there's the divisiveness and now everybody's My life, I don't think even one single person in my whole life, tons of people everywhere. I mean, COVID literally almost didn't even affect my life, like 1%, like 0.5%. This legal shit, everything exploded. all business relationships, all personal relationships, everything was set on fire. The whole fucking world was on fire.
Why was it so
everyone was just terrified? They were terrified. They thought, just being around me, the CIA is going to come out of a bush. Like everyone was just terrified. And I mean, even to this day, there's still like very, very slowly, maybe possibly, want to kind of talk to me a little bit more or whatever. Not that I even really care. It's like, all right, well, you left. I'm not really rushing to get you back in here. But oh yeah, I mean, literally every area of my life exploding like a massive propane tank, just being shot with like a 50 caliber bullet, just boom, like mushroom cloud, like everything was evaporated. Mm-hmm. Full rebuild, like a whole year of like severe difficulty, depression. What the fuck? What do I do? No one really wanted to be around me at all. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind, totally batshit psychotic, Brandon. And I just knew I had to do this. It never even for like 1 millisecond did I ever think I'm cutting this and I'm going back to my old life, which I had an opportunity to do. I had people literally tell me, like, if you stop all this shit, we'll keep you around. We'll stay how we are. Never even crossed my mind that was an option. If I in my head, if I had to be fucking alone as hell, all by myself in extreme despair and depression for a decade, that was exactly what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm. So what did you do to support yourself through that? Or what are the things that helped you?
Just got more and more focused into my research and more
mm-hmm.
Obsessed and lost in all of it. I actually quit my day job. I had 3 days a week because I wanted to just go all in. Mm-hmm. And now here we are 2 years later, and now I've got friends all over the country and people are inviting me to, giving me free event hall. I have event halls all over the country of people that just want to give it to me for free. Mm-hmm. I have an event hall. It's in Oklahoma City. You can come anytime you want. It's on the house, free. I'll bring food. I'll do everything. It's all free if you come and speak. Wow. Just like if you need a place to stay, hey, come to my log cabin in Arkansas. Let's go shooting. I got a guy a couple days ago. He's a military vet of like 20 years. He runs like a sniper night vision survival school. He's like free of charge. You come out here, the whole program's free. I mean, girls, tons of girls madly in love, like just the amount of love and affection and appreciation is so, I get probably 10, 15, 20, 25 emails a day. Just, you've changed my life. It's the most amazing thing. What can I do for you? I want to send you some whiskey. I want to invite you on a yacht. I want to do this. I want to do it's just like, and I don't have any money, but I want to support you in any way I can, this or that, or like you saved me from being homeless, or you saved my child from being taken from CPS. And there's just like all the time, like all day long. So that shift took a long time to happen. But when it started to happen, it went like that. But I was also doing like 5 or 6 or 7 shows like this one a week, almost every single day of the week for like a year and a half. Maybe not quite 7 days a week. I'd say if I had to like average it all out, like 5 a week for like a year and a half.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot. And it was a great strategy because, here you are now. I mean, the word has been spread and people have found you. The word's definitely been spread. That's how I found you.
I had to kick a lot of doors in. I had to show up at a lot of doors, but I knew, this is information that is fascinating, but absolutely terrifying. I mean, I had a lady trying to tell me about this information for 2 fucking years solid. And I was like, oh, no, I ain't touching that shit. You crazy? You're going to have the CIA smashing through your windows. I was one of those people.
Yeah.
And then when the EDD came around and started fucking with us and I got real desperate, that's when I called Nancy and I said, Nancy, I was in Nancy's house and she was telling me about this shit and I was filling out some documents. I was so terrified. Like, I've only experienced that. Like, I'd ride motorcycles. I'm like a trained motorcycle race guy. I'm a level 3 graduate of the California Superbike School, 167 miles an hour on a motorcycle down the 2 freeway here in LA, no problem. I was so terrified that I actually blacked out. Like my body temperature started to go super high, almost like I had a fever. And I literally blacked out and I started to feel like I was like woozy and drunk. And I was like looking around and everything was like, I was underwater. I was literally as if I was staring a gun barrel down a gun barrel. That's how terrified I was. And the beginning of all this and learning all this and starting to take action, it took me 6 months to even do any actions at all whatsoever. Like, it was just 6 months of just reading books and being and then it took me another 6 months. And then after the 6 months, that's when I started doing a whole lot of shit all at once. And I went like berserk. But I didn't tell anyone I was studying it. I didn't share it with hardly anybody. I shared it with just my one close friend, pretty much. And I studied quietly until one day, a lot of that fear subsided. I still had fear, but a lot of it had been replaced with certainty and excitement. But there still was fear. It was still like, oh God, I'm sending this to the IRS and I'm going into the Department of State with this and I'm going to the Social Security Administration and I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm sending this here and I've sent stuff to literally every single agency of the government, all 15 departments and the 3 major branches and the Social Security Administration and the DMV and everybody has heard from me now at this point. But it took me, 2 years of saying fuck you and then 6 months of doing nothing but studying. And we're talking like every single minute of the day I was studying. Like, if I was on the toilet, I would wake up and open up a book. Like, literally, I can barely even see. I'm like, the book's in my face, literally, for like 6 months.
It's wild. This is a wild life you live, and obviously many people are grateful for all the research you've done. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Keep keeping on and take care of yourself while you're doing it. And
thank you.
Where can our audience connect with you, find all this research, go into the wormholes of figuring out what they want to do? Where shall they go? To what you're holding up, I think, is obviously onestupidfuck.com. There you have it. I'll do the CTA for you. Well, Brandon, with that, thanks so much. And I'm sure we will see you again in a future episode.
Thank you very much.